Yeah, welcome to the presentation on my experience with going through a funding process in the Bay Area. So the lessons learned, why we did it, and let me start with one question. Who of you entertains the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, of founding a company? Okay, cool. Okay, so first of all, my experience is focused around open source technology and also in the domain of enterprise infrastructure. So quite a few of the things I'm saying will apply generically, but the focus is open source and enterprise infrastructure. I guess considering that we are here at DevOps, that should probably apply to what many of the folks here might have in mind with business ideas. So yeah, what is special with the Bay Area? Who of you has ever been in the Bay Area? Right. So the Bay Area is a singularity in the universe when it comes to software development. It's really, there is no place like the Bay Area. It's the density you have. I just need to fix one thing. Why is my dual presentation not working? Is that someone adjusted that? Sorry, because I have some notes that I can't see right now. That's a little bit. Sorry. Let's go back to this. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So the density of people, projects, company doing related things to what we are doing is just, it's insane, right? And so it's, without sounding too esoteric, but it's almost like a super brain that you are entering, right? It is the things you just pick up on the way in terms of ideas by coincidentally meeting people. There's such a depth when it comes to technology awareness, what is going on, cooperation opportunities, cooperations you would have never thought about that they are possible, but some other people have some interesting ideas. And this is not happening via email. This is not happening when you're doing remote work. This is happening by being there, by meeting those people, right? You have a very deep idea about the competitive landscape and also all the topics like how to do licensing, sales, marketing. Hundreds of people are doing this. Where I would say in Berlin, where I originally come from, how many companies do what we are doing? Not a single one, right? So the experience you can get and the risk mitigation, because you get so much feedback, you have so many impressions of and inspirations on how to do things. So the chance that you do the wrong decision and is just much smaller in the Bay Area, where you're always challenged than when you're in some other part of the world where the challenges of you in regard to your own strategies are much less frequent, right? So another key thing is that the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, is a raw model where the rest of the software industry in the world is looking for orientation, right? So for example, all the biggest banks in the US, they have labs in the Valley and do their yearly or multi-times a year special conferences to reach out to the startups. If you're not there, you're not invited to those events, right? And many other organizations, not just in the financial industry, are doing the same. So the connections I made just during the last 3 months, and I only relocated since then, they have a new quality. I met, and we are already coming from a very successful position, right? Our technology, Gradle, is used for years now at LinkedIn, at Netflix, at many large banks, but it's still very different types of people I now can meet, and the frequency is pretty. I'm surprised, although I expected that. I'm still surprised how well this is working out, right? So if you, in our area again, if you have to make it in the Bay Area to get to get the massive adoption you need, right? The other thing is business talent, right? So one thing, our engineering team is not in the Bay Area, right? That is one of the challenges. Having an engineering team in the Bay Area with the prices you have to pay, with the poaching that is happening, it is super hard to maintain a good engineering team. So this is where we really profit from our open source nature and have a distributed engineering team all over the world, right? So that is definitely a competitive advantage we have. But when it comes to the business team, that's definitely something we want to have in the Bay Area. And so let's say you're looking for a VP of marketing, right? Who has open source experience, understands a developer audience, understands how to sell a SaaS product, and has done it 10 times. Find that in Brussels, in Berlin, I don't know. This person, the single person that might exist, might be on holidays, right? It's really, that is another big quality that you find that business talent. It's still, those people have choices. It's still not easy to get them, but you have them, right? So I think, again, for our domain, I would almost say it's a must to be there. You risk a lot if you're not there. And traveling is not enough. I was traveling for years, back and forth, and it's something completely different when you're traveling, when you have a packed schedule, you only do the must meetings versus being there, and it's a much more organic way of entering this network, and a much richer way. So yeah, it was. I mean, I really enjoyed living in Berlin with my family. So it was not like that. I said, "Oh, I have to go there because it's the greatest place on earth to live." I mean, it's a good place to live, but from a business point of view, again, in the area where we are working, it's not doing this is risking the success of your project. I'm convinced about that. Okay, so let's talk about the business model for open source companies focused on enterprise infrastructure, like what we're doing, build and continuous delivery, which is part of that segment. So one thing, oops, that looks different on my slide, but anyhow, adoption is not enough. So when I started pitching our story, my general attitude was, we are so super successful open source wise, right? 300,000 downloads per month, right? The whole world is starting to use us. Corporations with Google, and a super strong story. So my initial idea was, okay, this will be 90% of my story will be, hey, look how successful we are, right? And then, yeah, and we have some ideas how to turn this into money. But that is not the successful way of selling the vision of your company, right? So when you and the speaker before that made that point, the VCs in the Bay Area, they have seen many successful open source projects that did not turn into a big business success. So it's almost like, and that happened almost, there's almost a tendency in the last, let's say, 5 years where this happened. So they're very aware of successful open source project not necessarily means successful business, right? And and the other thing is, let's say open source successes we've heard about where we say, wow, what a big success. They got bought for X, right? For the VCs, they think, well, yeah, it's a founder-friendly exit. Nothing we are interested in, right? So go big or go home, period, right? That is, you have to make a convincing case that you see an opportunity to build a $1 billion business, right? That is, if you can't make a convincing case about that, then they're not interested, basically. That is, I think, that is especially with a European mentality, let's put it like that, right? Where we are maybe more conservative when it comes to this kind of stuff. That's something you have to overcome, right? Go big or go home, period. Otherwise, it will be very hard to find a good VC if you can't get such a story across. So, in terms of revenue sources, what revenue sources are the VCs interested in? And that's of course an important part of the business model. So when we came there, I was pretty proud that we managed to grow our services and support business to kind of a couple of $1 million, right, from zero. Right, we were, and with really good clients and whatnot. And I was thinking, wow, they must be very impressed by that. No, services and support. Services evil, right? Support. The experience they had over the last 5 to 10 years. They're hardly a really successful company came out of a services and support-based business model, right? And again, what they consider a success might be different than what we consider a success from the open source exits and acquisitions we've heard about. So that was something that they even considered a distraction, right? They said, "Oh, so you're doing services? Oh, I'm concerned that this is that you don't have enough focus for the real thing we are interested in investing, right?" So that came as a surprise to me. So the other thing is what many open source projects do. They think, hey, we can create an enterprise product that can be sold for like hey, 6 figures or even more, right, to an organization. It is installed on premise, and that will be basically our business model: selling on premise products to the enterprise. No, that not interested, which is kind of a surprise. We had some ideas around that, and it doesn't mean that they think you can't have a healthy business around that. It's just that they think it's not the business they're interested in. So why do you think this is the case for this kind of product category? Any ideas?
They can't get a tenfold return.
Can't get a 10. Yes. Well, I mean, Oracle did this business quite successfully, right? So at least, so the key things they see is the dynamic of the growth, right? It's a heavyweight sales process, selling very expensive products to the enterprise, long sales cycle, takes a long time. It's also very hard to transfer your open source traction into this kind of product. So and there are other reasons why they're now looking for different business models. And I think the key is they're looking for SaaS offerings, right? That is and for a variety of reasons. First of all, explosive growth potential. The sales cycles can be much shorter. You can have a really interesting funnel. Start with some super cheap offerings where you don't need to do any sales. It's just credit card business, right? And you get people already into your platform, and then you have additional layers. Maybe at the end you even have some enterprise product for certain customers like GitHub Enterprise, but this is all driven to the SaaS, right? And again, lightweight sales, and you can fully harness the open source traction, right? It's super cheap for people to try it out, right? If they want to try out your enterprise on-premise product, it's already a heavyweight process. People have to go, they have to install it potentially. They need some instructions how to do it. Then they need to get some resources to run the thing. As you know, in some enterprises, getting a machine can take half a year, right, for a specific purpose. I've seen this very often. So with the SaaS, you make it very easy that people get familiar with your product, right? And you can easily also offer something for free. To turn anonymous people into people that you can reach out to with your marketing campaigns. And the other interesting thing with the SaaS is, and that's something VCs are super intrigued by, I think for good reasons, networking and data effects, right? when you host something in a SaaS, you own the data, right? Which is for itself not a value, but you should think extremely hard. Even if you initially think, I don't see any opportunity, but you should think extremely hard, is there any interesting information we can get out of the data? With enterprise on-premise product, you don't have the data, right? So is there something in there, right? LinkedIn is the best example, right, for networking and data effects and how you can turn this into a lot of money. It's not our domain, but I think also in our domain, there are very, very interesting opportunities if you think hard about it. When first people confronted me with this, saying network and data effect, I said, nah, what we are doing, I don't see, this is just not our cup of tea. I don't see, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't think there's any opportunity. And then I continue to think, and now I'm super excited about what we can do in this area, right? So, and networking effects means you create some effect that you have a network of individuals that because of the networking effect accelerates the growth, basically. Right. Again, GitHub is a very good example. Everyone is on GitHub, so you also want to be on GitHub. If now someone sends you a resume, we always get the GitHub ID, the GitHub URL of this person now with the resume to see his or her open source work. Right. So funding process. One very important question is why, right? We grew organically the first years, and we were cash flow positive, but and we could have continued like that, right? But on the other hand, it extremely limited us in what we could do. So we had a mostly service-based business model, which means cash flow-wise, you have always a net 60, right? People pay 60 days after you deliver the services. So, and then you have to take the revenue to invest that into open source R&D work. At the same time, you want to do some marketing. At the same time, you want to develop some commercial product potentially on top of your open source product or that integrates with your open source product. And it just didn't work out in a way that I felt we can do this successfully with the bandwidth we need, right? So that was basically, I came to the conclusion that we risk a big opportunity by not taking funding, right? Because we can't be fast enough to get something onto the market. And that is a question everyone has to answer for themselves. So, although entering the VC world is a very, very different world, right? So for me, there was really an interesting new universe, right? Technology-wise, being in the Bay Area was my home turf, but the VC scene is a very different cup of tea. And I think there is no way you can properly prepare for this funding process in Europe, right? So I did so, right? But with hindsight, I can only recommend make the jump and stay there for a while to get involved into the scene, to make some connections, to get acquainted, to get immersed before you start your funding process. That's I have 3 kids, right? So I wanted to kind of fit the funding process in my travel schedule. For us, at the end, it worked out, but it was I would not recommend to do it that way, right? Just whatever your situation is, this is your initial funding process is so crucial. You have to do whatever it takes to make it successful and to minimize the risk. So don't try to push the funding process into your travel schedule, what I did initially. And I think we were super confident, right? So I thought basically I just go there, tell our story, and they will be blown away, right? And we will have funding in 2 weeks. And initially it looked like it worked like that, but yeah. So it is, but then it didn't work out like that. So I think having some form of coach and advisor is super important, right? And because whatever good story you have to understand your target audience, right? So you You need people that can tell you about this target audience called VCs. And again, they have a very different perspective. Even if you think you have a good business mind, they see the world very differently. So I think this is essential, right? So to minimize risks. The problem is, it's not just your story. The process of the funding process is king. The VCs have a super short attention span, right? And you can easily burn the best VCs, and you have one shot, right? You have one shot. And then it was super interesting, although there is a massive VC scene out there, they all talk with each other, right? It was sometimes like, what is going on here? You know, I was really surprised by all those informal networks. And if you kind of start with the wrong process and you pitch here, you pitch there, you fly back to Europe, and then 3 weeks later you come back. At one point, they're wondering, I've heard 3 months ago that they're looking for funding. Why don't they have any funding yet? What is wrong with them? That smells fishy. I'm not interested. They easily get nervous about that stuff. So if you screw up the process, even with a super good story, you screwed up your funding process, right? So not just start, get advice, and have a really good process. It's at least as important as your story. That's introductions are key, right? Sending emails to the VCs. You need a network that can introduce you, right? That is key. However you have to. And sometimes from one introduction you get the next, right? So even if you have one good introduction, that can help you a lot, right? Then you have a meeting, and this person might tell you about someone else, etc. So that is an interesting one. Many open source projects are in a kind of hybrid state. So hybrid state means the open source technology is super well established and successful. But your business model and the products you want to build, you're in a super early stage, right? So you're in a hybrid state, and then you have the early stage VCs that are interested in you, but the evaluation they want to give you is not what you would expect. And then you have the big ones that come with the super big checks, but for them, you're kind of interesting, but your business model has not evolved enough for them. They're a little bit more risk averse. So you're easily in this intermediate state where many of the VCs don't really fit where you are. That's something you have to think about how to address that. One of the last slides. My impression is that many folks in Europe see VCs mostly as a money provider, right? But good VCs are a service company. They're a service company that helps a business to be successful, right? They can provide essential help with recruiting, sales, strategy, advisors, clients, and because I think you have to be in the Bay Area, your VC has to be then in the Bay Area, right? You don't want to have a VC in Europe and you need a network in the Bay Area, right? That wouldn't make much sense. And the other thing why I really recommend to approach VCs in the Bay Area is that it's such a competitive scene there, and this has led to some really outstanding VCs. So every VC is claiming how they can help organizations, but many do not deliver. And in the Bay Area, you have some that really deliver on that promise. And it is key, you know. Once you have, Once you get funding, the clock is ticking, right? You start burning money. You can't be too conservative. So every wrong decision hurts you deeply. Every wrong VP of sales you're hiring, every wrong VP of marketing you hire, and without the network, it is super hard to find the right people, right? And also to understand, I'm not an expert in marketing, I'm not an expert in sales, so what the VCs can provide to me is they have in their network some super experienced and famous VP of sales of some well-respected organization, the same for marketing, so they join the interviews with the potential recruiting candidates. And it is key, every wrong decision costs you months and a couple of wrong decisions and in the recruiting area, and that might kill you, right? At least cost you super valuable time. And this kind of network is super important, right? So And the VCs, as said, should provide one, and having more than one, especially when you're new to this area, is even better. So we are involved with the company HeavyBit Inc. HeavyBit was founded by the founder of Heroku, James Lindenbaum, and they are a kind of service company focused on helping startups that do developer tooling. I mean, and this is also something, I mean, this shows how specialized the Bay Area already is, right? That they have a kind of incubator for kind of mature companies that provide office space and services just for companies doing developer tooling. And yeah, we are super happy with them. So if you do work in this area, I can strongly recommend to reach out to them. They are perfect in that role, coaching you for the funding process and also once you have funding, helping you with their excellent network. There might be other companies if you're working in other areas, so that's something I would seriously take into consideration to do some research if there are some companies like that can be the coach and advisor for the funding process and beyond. Yeah. Any questions?
What's the software as a service future for Gradle?
Stealth mode. Q1 next year. Yeah. So, but super exciting ideas, and also code, but in a private GitHub repository. Yeah. Other questions? Oh yeah, sorry.
How did you get the first connections?
How did I get the first connections? A friend of mine is a CEO and founder of a company in the Bay Area, and we did a lot of stuff together in Germany in the old days. And he introduced me to his VC. Then this VC told me about HeavyBit and so on. So it was one point where then a lot of things came out and multiplied. That's why I'm saying you really have to dig. Even if it doesn't sound impressive, this one connection can be a dead end, but can lead to a lot of other interesting stuff. Yes, please.
When moving to San Francisco, is dealing with visa and all kinds of legal issues an issue, or is it nothing at all?
Oh, it's a big issue. So, and that's, I don't know if that is one thing I could have mentioned just because of the time I didn't mention it. The corporate structure. So when you start in Europe, so our approach was, I had a really good network in Europe in terms of legal advisors. My brother is a public accountant, so he has a super good network when it comes to corporate law and whatnot. So we made the decision, okay, let's start that company in Germany, right? And let's have all the IP in Germany, and the US subsidiary will be a daughter, right? But then once you start the funding, yeah, the fun starts, right? Reorganizing this is very complex, super expensive. You have lawyers then with $800 an hour that happily help you. And so visa is, when you have a simple structure, let's say a company in Europe and a company in the US, the visa is super easy. Because once you are employed, you can have intercompany transfer visas, right? And they are very straightforward. I mean, it's still paperwork. It's not a completely free lunch, but there's not much that can go wrong, right? But if you have to do a complete reshuffling of the organization, then that already can also cause problems with the visa. But if you have two entities, whoever, doesn't matter who is the subsidiary and who's the holding. If you have two entities, let's say in Belgium or Germany and US, visa will be easy, at least for one person. Right, for you as the founder. And then you can't just say, I get a visa for 10 people in Europe and get them all over. Then they would say, hold on, that they have some algorithms where they would say, for one people we give a visa, we want to see 4 or 5 people you hire in the US that need to be managed and stuff like that. So, but in general, that is pretty straightforward. But the legal side can be super challenging. And that is the other thing I learned. It's so easy nowadays to have an internationally operating organization in a super lightweight way, right? You have your virtual phone with with phones in the US and in Europe. It takes you $300 to create an Inc in the US. You can have a mailbox with Regos for another $200 a month. But once you do tax and once you do legal stuff, this lightweightness is gone. You have all the paranoia that is out there now that companies doing tax evasion. So you have to do when you do your accounting, intercompany transfer pricing. The US tax model it's so complicated. I couldn't believe it at the beginning. You have to file tax reports in every state. Costs a lot of money. So there's a lot of complexity that comes out of that. And that costs you money or risk if you not do it properly. That you are kind of getting into an illegal state. So that is one of the things I found quite a bit of a wall for a small company to overcome. In general, the legal and the tax issues when you do international business. Starting even with value-added tax in the EU, to a point where the Berlin finance. The Berlin Office for Finance and for Tax, we had situations, we did a German company is doing a training in London where someone from France is going to. What is the VAT situation? Berlin Department of Finance didn't know. They didn't know. So, and then we got a guy coming from a special tax guy from the federal government for doing some special checks with our books because of the value-added tax situation. It was almost bizarre and a lot of complexity in that area. But yeah, sorry, that's a little bit of a traumatizing topic. Seriously, yeah. Yes, please.
Maybe it's not an easy question. I thought long before asking. But you've got a family. I've got a family too.
Yes.
How do you make sure that the family stays financially safe? Is an endeavor like that?
So with the funding, just 50% salary for yourself. I'm joking. No, that is, I would say, you take risks, especially at the beginning. There is no, and then what safe means, I guess, is a is a personal assessment, and then also, how much reserves do you have, right? So it's a very individual decision, but it's definitely very stressful. Once you have funding, it's more straightforward because it's easy. It's easier with the cash flow, at least for the time you have the money. But the thing is when it sounds so cool, you're an entrepreneur, but yeah, you put a lot of sacrifice on your family.
No, I meant
Yeah.
for the venture capitalists.
Yes.
I don't know about the legal contracts between a founder and a venture capitalist.
Yes.
But how do you put a firewall? How much they can take if the company fails at the end?
Well, if it fails, goodbye. Right? I mean, that is the key thing is stay in control. Right? Have the majority on the board. Right? So that they shouldn't have the possibility to fire you. Right? Right? Definitely not in the first round of financing. And then it depends all how successful you are. Right? If you can maintain that control or not. If you're not successful and you're desperate for money, when you run out of money, you're not in a good position to negotiate, right? If you're doing a good job, then you're in a much stronger position to keep that control, right? So, but if it's a complete failure, I mean, what then? It's then still, I guess it's you have to look at very individual cases. What are then best strategies and what not, right? Is that an answer to your question?
Partly, yes. I don't want to take questions from others, but what happens if the money is out and from the first round and the company didn't take off as expected? What's the contract situation between them?
There's no specific contract for that. So the point is, I mean, the question then is, what is your next step? So basically, the VCs they have some veto rights to protect their investment, right? I can't just say, okay, I sell the company for $1 to my friend or whatnot, right? So you need to, but on the other hand, they also can't do anything that we don't agree with. So then it depends, I think, a lot on the VC, on the relationship you have, right? And on the opportunities, right? What does it mean, not as expected, right? Is there still an interesting story that you can spin to get more money, or is it just completely hopeless? But yeah, it's never a good situation to be in. That's for sure. So it's you take risk. You take once you take funding, you take risk. You limit your control. You limit the strategies you have when things go into direction you don't want to. That's a risk you take. Period. Yeah. Yes, please.
If a company fails, are you personally liable for that money?
Oh no. Sorry, no, it's a legitimate question, but no, that is why it's venture capital. They risk, right? If it fails, that's
We're out of time.
okay. Yeah, no, not at all. That is their risk, right? That otherwise that would be that's something I wouldn't do.